Imagine running a business where you are selling more product than at any point in your company's entire history.
Right, just absolute peak demand.
Exactly. You are staring at record-breaking revenue. You've got a line of customers out the door. But at the exact same time, your actual profits are in absolute free fall.
Which is terrifying for any business.
Right. Well, welcome to the Candy Aisle in 2026. Today, we are opening up a document for this deep dive that, honestly, it reads less like a standard financial filing and much more like a corporate survival manual.
Yeah, it really does.
We're diving into the Hershey Company's notice of 2026 annual meeting and proxy statement.
And, people usually dismiss proxy statements. They think of them as just this obligatory, dry, legal paperwork.
Just delete the email from your brokerage.
Exactly. But if you actually know how to decode them, they are the unvarnished genetic code of a corporation's strategy. I mean, a proxy tells you exactly what a board of directors is terrified of.
Yeah.
It shows you what radical bets they're placing to secure their future and the specific financial metrics they are using to force their top executives to actually execute that vision.
And the vision we're looking at today is for an iconic 130-year-old candy giant that is currently rewiring its entire identity. I mean, we're talking about a complete overhaul.
A massive shift.
Yeah, they are overhauling their leadership, completely rethinking their product lineup, and this is the crazy part, deploying board-level artificial intelligence governance, all just to survive some unprecedented global economic shifts.
And the immediate catalyst driving all of this is, it's a glaring paradox in their 2025 financial performance.
Right. Let's look at those numbers. So net sales actually grew by 4.4%. They brought in almost $11.7 billion in revenue.
Which is huge. Consumers are clearly still buying.
Right. People are buying. But adjusted earnings per share plummeted by 32.7%.
Yeah, a 32% drop in profit while sales go up it's brutal.
It's wild. So the primary mechanism driving that drop is explicitly called out in the proxy. It's unprecedented cocoa inflation.
Yeah, it is a textbook example of a parabolic commodity crisis.
Okay, let's unpack this for the listener. Imagine you're running a thriving bakery, right?
Okay, I like this.
You're selling more cakes than ever, business is booming, but suddenly the price of flour just skyrockets.
Right.
Even with record sales, your profit margins get completely crushed because you can only raise the price of a cake so much before people stop buying it.
Exactly. When the raw material that defines your core product just explodes in price, you hit a wall with price elasticity of demand.
You can't just charge $20 for a standard chocolate bar.
Right. You can only raise that retail price so many times before the consumer simply walks away. So your fixed costs remain the same, your variable costs absolutely explode, and your profit margins just evaporate.
Which totally explains the massive leadership transition they executed right in the middle of this storm.
Yes, the changing of the guard.
Right. So in August of 2025, former CEO Michelle Buck retired, and Kirk Tanner stepped in as the new president and CEO.
And his background is really key here.
Yeah, looking at his resume, he didn't come from inside the chocolate factory. He spent 3 decades at PepsiCo.
Running a $25 billion beverage business.
Right. And most recently, he was the CEO of Wendy's.
So bringing in an outsider with that specific background, it signals a structural shift in strategy. Tanner brings a toolkit that's heavily indexed on operational scale and serious M&A.
Mergers and acquisitions.
Exactly. Because when your legacy chocolate products are bleeding margin due to global cocoa futures, organic growth in that specific category it cannot save you.
You can't just sell more of the thing that's losing you money.
Right. You need a leader who knows how to drive ruthless efficiency across a massive global supply chain. But even more importantly, you need someone who knows how to acquire, integrate, and scale completely new, non-cocoa businesses.
Because Kirk Tanner isn't going to just sit around waiting for global cocoa futures to magically stabilize.
No, definitely not.
If the chocolate aisle is bleeding money, his background indicates he's going to literally buy his way into a completely different aisle.
And we see that explicitly laid out in the proxy with their new stated vision.
Right, to lead next generation snacking.
Yes. The board has outlined 4 strategic imperatives to actually operationalize this vision.
Let's run through them.
Sure. First, they plan to accelerate their existing leadership in U.S. candy, mint, and gum. Second, and this is the big pivot, they are aiming to become the #2 player in North American salty snacks.
Salty snacks.
Third, they're focused on building international scale. And fourth, they're aggressively expanding into what the industry calls functional snacking.
So the proxy highlights that Skinny Pop Popcorn and Dots Pretzels are currently among the fastest growing brands in their respective categories.
Yeah, they've seen massive success there.
And internationally, Reese's just crossed a major threshold. They surpassed $300 million in net sales outside the US.
Which is incredible growth.
It is. But I think we need to pause here and look at the underlying risk of this pivot.
Okay, what do you think?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting for you as a listener. Is there a massive risk of losing their identity here? I mean, when you hear Hershey, you think chocolate bars, right? Not pretzels and functional health snacks.
That's a very fair point.
Are they straying too far from their roots? Because if they lean too heavily into popcorn, they risk alienating their legacy customer base while trying to fight these entrenched competitors in the salty snack aisle.
The tension between legacy brand identity and corporate survival is real. It's a tightrope. But the mechanism at play here isn't an abandonment of chocolate.
Okay.
It is an aggressive, calculated raw material hedge. By diversifying into what they call permissible salty snacks and better-for-you categories, Hershey is fundamentally altering its supply chain dependencies.
Oh, I see. Because popcorn and pretzels rely on corn and wheat.
Exactly. And those agricultural commodities operate on entirely different pricing cycles and geographic weather patterns than West African cocoa.
Right. So if cocoa prices spike again in 3 years, but a third of their total revenue is now insulated by corn and wheat products.
The overall corporate profit margin doesn't take another 32% hit.
Wow. Okay, so the salty snack expansion is essentially margin insurance masquerading as consumer choice.
That is precisely the underlying logic. Furthermore, permissible salty snacks and functional items often command a premium retail price point compared to, just traditional candy.
You definitely pay more for the organic popcorn.
Right. Which improves the overall margin mix of their portfolio. It gives the company the financial ballast it needs to weather the extreme volatility in the chocolate sector.
But executing a structural pivot of this magnitude, that requires enormous capital and time. And usually Wall Street is brutally impatient.
Oh, absolutely ruthless.
Right. Like, if a normal public company posts a 32% drop in profits, activist hedge funds swarm. They demand immediate stock buybacks. They slash research and development. They force executive turnover.
Yet the 90-day earnings cycle claims another victim.
Exactly. But Hershey operates under a governance structure that actively shields them from that 90-day cycle, which is just fascinating.
It really is. The power dynamics in Hershey's boardroom are fundamentally different from almost any other Fortune 500 company. And it's all because of the Milton Hershey School Trust.
Okay, tell us about the trust.
So, it was established back in 1909 to fund a school for disadvantaged children. And this trust, through the Hershey Trust Company, controls 99.9% of the Class B shares of the Hershey Company.
99.9%. And Class D shares carry supersized voting rights, right? 10 votes per share.
That's right.
So what does this all mean for the listener who maybe owns a few shares of Hershey? It's like having a benevolent billionaire grandparent who helped fund your house, but structurally holds 79% of the voting rights on what color you're allowed to paint it.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
While the trust doesn't own the entire economic value of the corporation, they hold an insurmountable voting majority.
79% of the total voting power.
Right. And that structural reality fundamentally alters corporate behavior. Because they have that majority, activist investors cannot force hostile takeovers.
They can't just storm the gates.
Exactly. They can't mandate short-term margin padding at the expense of long-term strategy. The trust's mandate is to fund a school in perpetuity. They measure success in decades, not quarters.
Which provides the board of directors with this mandated breathing room.
Yes, they can execute a multi-year pivot to salty snacks or weather a temporary 32% profit drop driven by cocoa inflation without the threat of a boardroom coup.
But, concentrated power of that magnitude also creates governance risks. If one entity holds 79% of the vote, minority shareholders, like anyone holding Hershey in their 401k, they need assurance that there are checks and balances.
Absolutely. And the proxy details a recent modernization effort to address exactly this.
Right. They officially split the CEO and chairman roles. Maria T. Krause stepped in as the new independent chairman in August 2025.
Which is a huge deal. Splitting the roles provides crucial independent oversight of the CEO. But, and this is a big but, the proxy explicitly notes that the election of the chairman required the agreement of the trust.
Interesting.
Yeah. 3 members of the board, Krause, Cordell Robin Coker, and Harold Singleton III, are direct representatives of the trust.
So every strategic move, from acquiring a pretzel brand to overhauling executive compensation, requires a pre-clearance nod from the trust's representatives.
Precisely. It is a highly calibrated balance between independent corporate oversight and perpetual philanthropic control.
And with a board engineered to look decades into the future, their risk management strategy spans this fascinating duality.
Oh, it really does.
They are simultaneously managing the most ancient aspects of agriculture and the most bleeding-edge developments in enterprise technology.
Yeah, the contrast is stark.
So the proxy details their sustainability strategy, which they call Source, Make, Delight. And the source component is just pure supply chain hardening.
Right, because cocoa sustainability is an existential operational requirement. The proxy highlights their income accelerator program in Côte d'Ivoire.
Which provides cash transfers and coaching to over 5,000 farmers, right?
Yes. And they are also backing 334 village savings and loan associations, where women constitute 68% of the active savers.
And building financial literacy and stability at the local farming level, that isn't just corporate philanthropy.
Not at all.
It prevents supply chain collapse at the macro level, because if the farmers abandon cocoa for more lucrative crops...
Hershey's legacy business ceases to exist.
Right, so that secures the physical dirt. But then we jump to the cloud, and this part really caught my eye.
The AI oversight.
Yes. The proxy reveals that the Finance and Risk Management Committee has formal oversight of artificial intelligence. They have an AI use policy that classifies systems by high, medium, and low risk.
Yeah, it's comprehensive.
So wait a second. Why does a candy manufacturer require board-level cyber defenses specifically targeted at algorithms? Why does the maker of Reese's Peanut Butter Cups need to worry about high-risk AI deployment?
It's a great question. And it comes down to supply chain duality. When a global enterprise integrates predictive AI into its operations to manage, say, demand forecasting, logistics, and supply chain efficiency.
Which they all have to do now to stay competitive.
Exactly. But when they do that, they introduce entirely new vectors of vulnerability. Think about it. If Hershey uses an AI routing algorithm to determine how many raw materials to ship to a processing plant in Ohio versus a facility in Mexico,
Okay.
that AI requires unfettered access to their entire global vendor database, port schedules, internal financial forecasts, everything.
Wow, so if a bad actor breaches that logistics algorithm, they don't just disrupt a shipment of peanuts.
No, they gain access to the central nervous system of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
It immediately becomes a massive data privacy and cybersecurity threat. And furthermore, the audit committee is actively monitoring how AI impacts their financial reporting and internal controls.
Because the AI is making financial decisions.
Right. If an AI system is hallucinating demand data and automatically triggers raw material purchases based on that bad data, it directly impacts free cash flow and earnings projections.
So you really cannot separate the agricultural reality of the cocoa bean from the digital reality of the algorithm.
You really can't. A failure in either system completely cripples the enterprise.
Okay, so navigating a landscape where you have to hedge global commodity hyperinflation, appease a philanthropic trust that holds 79% voting power, and secure an AI-driven global supply chain.
It's a lot.
It is a lot. It requires ruthless execution. So how do you guarantee the executives actually deliver on all of this without losing their minds?
Well, you tie their wallets directly to the outcomes.
Right, the compensation structure. So for CEO Kirk Tanner, 90% of his target total direct compensation is strictly at risk.
90%.
Yeah, and with 72% of it tied up in equity. And for the other named executive officers, 78% of their pay is at risk.
The mechanism they use to drive that annual performance is called the One Hershey Incentive Program, or OAP.
OAP. Okay.
But the most revealing aspect of their governance response to the chaos of 2025 is how they fundamentally restructured their long-term incentives.
The performance stock units, the PSUs.
Exactly. This is where it directly impacts any listener who holds Hershey stock. The board completely abandoned their traditional 3-year adjusted earnings per share target.
And replaced it with 3 separate 1-year targets.
Yes, because if you keep a rigid 3-year profit target during a period of parabolic commodity inflation, you completely break the link between executive pay and actual management skill.
Because the outcome just becomes dictated by global cocoa futures.
Right. If an executive realizes that a 3-year EPS target is mathematically impossible to hit because the core raw material just quadrupled in price overnight, they have 2 terrible choices.
What are they?
They either give up and lose all motivation, or they take desperate, destructive short-term actions, like slashing crucial R&D or gutting marketing budgets just to artificially inflate the current quarter's earnings and save their bonus.
Oh, wow. Let me make sure I'm getting this. Because of the wild inflation and market volatility, setting a 3-year financial target became impossible.
Basically, yes.
So instead of asking the CEO to predict the weather 3 years out, they are having him navigate one stormy year at a time while still keeping the ship headed to the same ultimate destination.
That is a brilliant way to put it. It's a textbook governance response. They still measure the total return to shareholders over the full 3-year period, to ensure alignment with investors.
Right.
But the specific internal financial metrics are set at the beginning of each year based on the actual price of commodities.
And we see the result of this calibration in the 2025 OHIP payouts. Despite adjusted earnings per share dropping 32% year over year, the executives still received an OHIP payout of 165% of target. Now, on the surface, paying out 165% bonuses while profits drop 32%, that looks outrageous to a casual shareholder.
Oh, it absolutely does. Until you understand the underlying mechanics. The board factored the forecasted cocoa inflation into the 2025 financial plan from day one.
They knew it was coming.
Right. They set aggressive but realistic adjusted internal targets based on that severe headwind. And the executive team actually over-delivered on those adjusted targets. They successfully navigated the margin compression better than the baseline projection.
So they didn't just get a free pass.
No, not at all. In fact, the proxy notes, a 6% negative modifier was applied to the payout because the executives missed specific market share targets in U.S. candy.
Even though their salty snack market share grew.
Exactly. They are rewarded for successfully steering the ship through a macroeconomic hurricane, but they are still penalized for losing ground to direct competitors in their legacy business.
It is a highly sophisticated, really adaptive compensation model. It's designed to keep leadership engaged during periods of severe external volatility.
It really is.
Yeah.
The mechanics of enterprise survival require this constant, precarious balance. You have to honor your legacy, but you also have to ruthlessly adapt to the future.
And the sheer density of strategic intelligence packed into this one document is staggering. I mean, when you grab a bag of pretzels or a chocolate bar off the shelf, you are interacting with an entity balancing raw agricultural survival in West Africa, algorithmic cyber defenses, aggressive corporate acquisitions, and the perpetual funding of a 117-year-old school.
It really changes how you look at the candy aisle.
It really does. But before we wrap up, there is one final lingering question we should leave you, the listener, to ponder.
Yeah, this is the really provocative part of the trust structure.
Right. Since the Milton Hershey School Trust holds 79% of the voting power, and they rely heavily on the company's dividends for their philanthropic mission, how might this unique corporate structure limit or empower the company if they ever needed to make a drastic, painful business pivot that temporarily cut off those funds?
If you can't cut the dividend because the school needs it, your strategic options suddenly look very different.
Exactly. It's a fascinating constraint on a multi-billion-dollar company, something to consider the next time you drop a bag of popcorn or a chocolate bar into your grocery cart. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.